Welcome to the channel for the future caretakers of resurrected species. Welcome to the Paleo-Zoo-Keepers Association.
Oh, hello there. Welcome to the Paleo-Zoo-Keepers Association. My name is Austin. When taking care of animals of any kind, whether they are living or extinct, we often look to the animal's closest living relatives, or the relatives that are closest to us, to be able to get a good idea. When we take care of like water buffalo, bison, and other wild cattle, we look to domesticated cattle to give us good ideas. Then we will go with wild horses. We will go to domesticated horses and work from there. And then there are other animals that would be able to that are definitely different, but are still close related. Like we can use horses to help with make models for diets for tapirs and rhinos and so forth. Though with some animals, since you don't have any domesticated relatives or even any living relatives with them, this can be pretty tricky. One good example of this is the Hyaenodon, or at least for this video's sake, Hyaenodon horridus. This large predator looks like a canid and has a body like a big cat, but its closest living relatives are the pangolin, and that's not the only thing that makes it so different than all the other modern carnivores. So this is definitely going to present great challenges, but let's take a look at the challenges we face. Hyaenodons are a family of carnivorous mammals, placental mammals, that, according to the fossil record, appeared in the mid-Eocene 42 million years ago and went extinct at the end of the Oligocene 25 million years ago. And despite their appearances of looking like canids and their physiologies looking similar to that of cats, the closest living relatives to the Hyaenodons are actually the pangolins. Not cats, not dogs, not even their namesake, the hyenas, or any member of the order Carnivora. With this in mind, in theory, if you want to be able to resurrect a Hyaenodon, you could use the pangolin as the basal genome and modify it with any DNA of Hyaenodon you can find. But even then, that's a bit of a stretch, because while the pangolin is their closest living relative, they're not that close, so it would take a lot of genetic work. So, yeah. But in case one is wondering, the family of Hyaenodons is quite diverse, from having cursorial predators to arboreal predators to even ones that have an aquatic lifestyle like otters. And they come in various sizes, from being as small as cats to as large as the largest bears. For the sake of this video, we're going to be mostly focusing on the North American species Hyaenodon horridus, which basically weighs between 88 to 130 pounds or 40 to 60 kilograms, about almost 6 feet long or 1.8 meters long, and about 2.7 feet tall or 80 centimeters tall, which makes it around the same size and weight as a large wolf. While this video will be mostly focusing on this species, this stuff that we talk about in this video can also be done for other Hyaenodon species as well, albeit with some modifications depending on the species. With the name Hyaenodon, it often leads to the misconception that the Hyaenodon is closely related to the hyenas of today. But when you look at their skulls side to side, these animals are actually pretty different. This is the skull replica of a spotted hyena, the ones that you know so well in the African savanna. More closely related to cats than they are to dogs, also related to the mongoose. And here, I have a replica of a Hyaenodon horridus, one of the very classic Hyaenodon species, if not the classic Hyaenodon species. And as you can tell, they're very different. The hyena skull is much more shorter, has that little brow there, and that's just one of the many differences between this and the Hyaenodon, which is a lot longer, not much of a brow. So when you look at them side by side, you can definitely see that these two animals are as different as chalk and cheese. Another way to see the differences between these two animals is their teeth and jaws. For example, the spotted hyena has a very thick jaw, like you see here, really thick here. And when you look at the teeth, like you see the back teeth here, they're very thick, sharp, but thick, which is an adaptation to crush bone. And especially the short skull, like I pointed out before, definitely is a good adaptation for crushing bones. Now, for the Hyaenodon, this is a different story. Very narrow, and when you look at the teeth here, especially the teeth right here, they are much thinner than that of the hyena's teeth. Thinner, but still sharp, which is meant for shearing, for cutting rather than crushing. And in fact, there are a couple of special teeth here that set the Hyaenodon apart from the hyena itself. See these teeth right here and here. See how they are kind of curved down like that? And in relation to that, there are some teeth here that are actually curved like that as well. And when you see the back teeth together, they actually grind into each other. These are the guillotine teeth, or at least I call them the guillotine teeth, of the Hyaenodon. Their teeth actually curve and keep moving or growing in a certain direction, that they're always being sharpened as they open their jaws, or when they consume bone or any other hard parts of the body parts. No other carnivorous mammal has this sort of ability. It stays so nice and sharp all the time that even when they become old, they still have those back there and still sharp, so they can be able to process meat, even when all the rest of their teeth are pretty much worn down. Definitely a trait that sets it apart from the hyena. Another difference that you can see on the skulls between Hyaenodon and hyenas is that the brain cases are different in size. The Hyaenodon's brain-to-body ratio is significantly smaller than that of the hyena, who has a larger brain than the Hyaenodon. In fact, the brain-to-body ratio of the Hyaenodon is actually very akin to that of marsupial predators, especially the quoll. So, with this in mind, it definitely will affect on how the animal will behave, especially in captivity. On an interesting note, research on juvenile hyaenodons have shown that they would take 3 to 4 years for their adult teeth to erupt out, which means they have a very long juvenile stage in comparison to modern carnivores, such as tigers and canids. Well, with this information in mind, this leads to a personal theory that I have about the hyaenodon that can definitely affect how you take care of them. I believe that the hyaenodon, in comparison to a wolf of the same size, has a very slow or low metabolism in comparison to a carnivore of the same size. I say that because, generally speaking, a small brain-to-body ratio is often an energy-saving mechanism when trying to make use of a diet that doesn't give them a lot of nutrition. Now, mind you, it's generally agreed upon that the small brain is to be able to help make room for these very powerful jaw muscles right here. I definitely agree with that. But I think that with this small brain in relation to body size, and especially with the brain consuming the most amount of nutrition, And with a small brain, it can be able to save energy, and it's often an indicator of probably a low metabolism. Also, being able to grow so slowly to reach adulthood to 3 to 4 years of age, that's definitely going to be a sign of a slow metabolism, or at least a slow one in comparison to a large carnivoran. And I think this will definitely affect how you take care of the animal. And I'll explain that later. With all this information in mind, let's go for the health concerns and enrichment for Hyaenodon. The first one we will start on are health concerns. There will definitely be a lot of different ailments that would trouble Hyaenodon, but for the sake of this video, I will focus on three in particular, especially since these three elements also affect modern carnivores today. One such modern disease that could be a danger for Hyaenodons is canine distemper. As the name would suggest, this highly contagious disease affects canids, but it also could affect an array of other mammal species as well, such as pinnipeds, felids, and even elephants. With this wide range of hosts, it's quite possible for canine distemper to be able to affect Hyaenodon. When infected by this disease, canine distemper can affect the respiratory system, gastrointestinal system, and even the neurological system, especially the brain. While symptoms may vary, the most commonly observed signs would be a runny nose, vomiting, diarrhea, dehydration, excessive salivation, coughing, labored breathing, loss of appetite, weight loss, along with seizures, especially seizures of the jaw movements that are described as chewy gum fits. And as the disease goes on, the seizures get worse. Even if the animal were to survive from canine distemper, complications, or especially lifelong complications, will come about afterwards. One of the most common complications is hard pad disease, in which the paw pads and skin on the end of the nose will thicken. Also, any puppies, or at least young, that are affected by the disease can have their enamel just completely destroyed, or at least not formed or never grown, since the virus pretty much destroys the cells responsible for development of the tooth enamel, and these teeth would degrade as time goes on. Along with, there's also other life-threatening complications, especially the degradation of the nervous system. They will develop seizures, paralysis, their sight will be reduced. It's just a really, really miserable existence for a surviving animal. There's no specific treatments to be able to help with canine distemper is known. The best that can be done is mostly supportive, such as making certain that the fluid and electrolyte balances are taken care of, the neurological system's taken care of, and be able to prevent any secondary bacterial infections. The best way you could be able to prevent this from occurring is to basically make certain that the animals get vaccinations. Now, whether a Hyaenodon would be able to respond positively to vaccines done for modern animals is uncertain. More research would need to be done on this. Periodontal disease is another possible disease that can affect the Hyaenodon. It's also known as gum disease. It is a serious gum infection that damages the soft tissue around teeth. We know the early stages of this disease as gingivitis. The cause of the disease is often done by plaque that gets onto your teeth or to your gums or the bone of your jaws. Untreated, it will cause you to lose your teeth or your teeth to get loosened, and even destroy the gum tissue that helps hold your teeth in your jaw. Due to given a soft processed diet in captivity, zoo carnivores like big cats and bears often suffer from this disease, and it's most likely that a Hyaenodon in captivity would suffer from this as well. One of the ways we can prevent it will be explained later in the video. But even so, you need to be able to do treatment, especially regular checkups, dental procedures on the animal's mouth would definitely need to be done. With doing dental procedures on large carnivores, this is obviously going to be very tricky and dangerous. Now, to be a non-invasive way of being able to do dental work on a large carnivore like a Hyaenodon, you could be able to condition the animal to present its mouth so that you could be able to do a little brushing and such through the bars. Now, a more easy way of doing a dental work would be mentioned later in the video. But for procedures that you need to get in there with it without them being awake, this will normally mean you'll need to tranquilize them and be able to put them on an operating table to do the teeth. But there is one component of the Hyaenodon's physiology that would make the process a bit tricky. And it's basically on the palate. Now, the palate is basically like the roof of the mouth here, which separates the mouth from the nasal cavity. Now, for this hyena skull, for example, you can see the palate, and it's right around here, this little hole right here, and it basically shows that the hyena you can be able to intube the hyena when it's asleep, and this also shows that it can be able to breathe through its mouth and even pant, and pant through its mouth. However, Hyaenodons are completely different. Even in this model, you see that this palate is really, really long, and in fact, the hole of the palate actually goes way to the back of the skull. This is an adaptation so that when they bite down on their prey, they can be able to keep biting without having to worry about breathing. This will show that they most likely didn't breathe through their mouths, so they probably couldn't even pant. That's possible. But also, this means that you cannot be able to intube them in the way you could to modern carnivores like hyenas and dogs. And what I mean by intubing, I mean you put a tube down its windpipe and attach it to a ventilator. So you see, when an animal gets sedated, it doesn't just make them sleepy, it also relaxes their muscles. It's even the muscles that are responsible for breathing. So by doing that, you could be able to have the machine, the ventilator, breathe for the animal while the animal is sedated. Now, with Hyaenodons, with their unique palate, you're not going to be able to tube them through the mouth like you normally would to modern carnivores. However, by looking at what we know how we deal with two other animals that are alive today that have the similar palate placement, there may be actually an idea how to do so. One of the modern day animals that has a long palate similar to the Hyaenodon are cetaceans, whales, and dolphins. This is an adaptation so that water doesn't get into their lungs. Now, while it's definitely similar, I'm not sure using intubation on them it would work because the physiology is extremely different from the Hyaenodon. So definitely would not be a good idea. Another animal, at least the second modern animal that has a similarly long palate, are the anteaters. For them, it's an adaptation so that when they lap up their ants and termites, they don't accidentally inhale the insects or any dirt they accidentally lap up with. Now, as you can tell by their skull, trying to put a breathing tube through their mouth would definitely be impossible. But there is a paper that proposed a way of being able to tube an anteater that might actually work for the Hyaenodon. And that procedure is called tracheostomy. Tracheostomy is basically surgically making a hole in the trachea as an alternative means of intubation or breathing. This is often done for flat-faced dogs like bulldogs doing surgical procedures. And these can even be temporary too. So in a surgical procedure, whether it's dental or otherwise for Hyaenodon, this should be necessary to help be able to intube the Hyaenodon. One 21st century disease that would most likely be a detriment to the hyaenodon is the infamous rabies. This deadly disease is transmitted via from saliva of an infected animal or even the blood of an infected animal. Symptoms of this disease include, but are not limited to, fever, headache, vomiting, nausea, increased aggression, hyperactivity, difficulty swallowing, increased salivization, basically more drooling, partial paralysis, and even an aversion to water. Most mammals can also get this disease and even transmit it. Best known examples are bats, skunks, and raccoons, and even dogs. As of this point, there is no cure for rabies. Prevention is the only thing that can be done. One would definitely limit the amount of wildlife that would enter their enclosure, especially of bats, skunks, and raccoons, though this is considered to be impossible, at least with outdoor enclosures. The main way to be able to help to deal with this is to give the Hyaenodon a rabies vaccination. Now, whether rabies vaccines of today would have a positive effect on the Hyaenodon is debatable. So more research on this would need to be done. On a side note, there are at least a couple notes to note about with the Hyaenodon and rabies. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I have a hypothesis that due to the small brain and slow growth rate, I would say that the Hyaenodon probably has a slow or a low metabolism compared to a mammalian predator of a similar size. And it could be possible that due to that hypothetical low metabolism, the chances of the Hyaenodon getting rabies may be pretty minimal compared to, like, say, a wolf. We have some evidence of this, of that mammals that are known to have pretty low or slow metabolisms, like the Virginia opossum and anteaters, they're often less than likely to get rabies. But this still can happen, as in of 2022, a zoo anteater has actually been the first anteater in all history to contract rabies. So while if my theory is true, then while they can still probably get rabies, probably not as much as a mammalian predator of a similar size. Another note to probably mention is that because the Hyaenodon is foaming but doesn't show any of the other symptoms associated with rabies, it could be that it's not going for rabies at all. It could either just be really hot, like the weather, or it could actually be choking. I say that because with horses, now mind you, horses don't have the long bony palate like the Hyaenodons do, but they have enough soft tissues back there that it does something similar. Anyway, with that in mind, well, when horses are choking, they don't have an issue with the breathing, but they will salivate a lot. This will be a reaction to try to get whatever they got in there to go down better. Now, this could probably be the same thing for the Hyaenodon, and this could be because it probably bit off more than it could chew, or it could have be dehydrated and not be able to swallow properly. Those could be the possibilities of a Hyaenodon foaming at the mouth but not having rabies. Now that we go over the health concerns, let's get to enrichment. But also, just remember, some of the enrichment here can actually help the animal's health, not just mentally. One of the ways that we can know how to best enrich an animal is by looking at the brain. Now, I know I mentioned earlier that the brain to body ratio is that the Hyaenodon has a small brain in relation to its body size. But we do know that from the brain scans we've done is that the proportion of the brain that is responsible for the olfactory sense of smell is that it's more well developed than anything else. So basically, that tells us that Hyaenodon has a pretty good sense of smell, and we can use a scent-based enrichment to enrich the animal, such as hooking out spices around, ginger and other senses to entice it. The bedding that was from other parts of the zoo that had or animals used that could entice their sense of smell. Even like hair of a shedded hair or shedded skin from a reptile that could be used to entice their senses of smell, and amongst other things too. One of the ways we can do that is by having the scent be related to food. Like basically leave a scent trail that will eventually lead to a piece of food that is high. One kind of food that we can give is a whole carcass, especially like of a rabbit, for example. As long as the rabbit has been probably been quarantined in the freezer for over a month, it will definitely work out. But just make certain you keep a lookout for guest sensitivities. While giving the Hyaenodon a carcass would be great, some guests just don't like the idea of a thumper being eaten. Another way is to basically have the food be in an item that the animal has to work out in order to get it out. One of them is that you could be able to use an item that the Hyaenodon can destroy easily, like a cardboard box. When using cardboard boxes for enrichment, they're perfect because they can be able to be ripped apart and you can do a lot with them. However, before you use cardboard boxes for enrichment for the animals, what you're going to need to take off the tape, basically plastic tape, and you gotta take that off because you don't want the animal to ingest it or anything like that. It will get stuck in his throat or in the stomach, and that could cause a whole sort of problems. So basically, before you ever use a cardboard box for enrichment item, make sure you take all the tape off first. Another would be probably an indestructible puzzle feeder that the Hyaenodon can't be able to break apart, but will need to move around in order to try to get the food or get the food out of it. Like this little puzzle feeder here. It definitely is a good idea, but there's a little bit of something you need to watch out for when doing a puzzle feeder like this. If you're going for a puzzle feeder like this, do not use cables to do that. Because cables can be pretty detrimental and they can unintentionally wrap around a Hyaenodon's neck. And when the Hyaenodon's chewing on it, well, they won't cut it out right away, but they definitely increase their chances of doing it. That'll ruin their teeth, and if they ever do cut it, it will mess up their mouths really badly. I would recommend on using a chain rather than a cable, because cable is strong, but it won't do all that crazy stuff that a cable would do. But also make certain that it is within a fire hose, so that way the fire hose can protect the Hyaenodon's jaws from the metal. So yeah, definitely go for something like this. Speaking of teeth, remember the periodontal disease that I mentioned earlier? I mentioned that one of the ways to prevent it is to make certain that if you could be able to train the animal to cooperate in brushing the teeth. There is another way through enrichment that you could be able to do this. As mentioned before, soft meat or soft food could definitely cause plaque to build up in the animal's mouth, destroying their gums and their dental health. One way we could be able to fix this is by giving them a hard food. In this case, bones with a little bit of meat on. As the Hyaenodon chews on these bones, it's basically their equivalent of brushing their teeth. And it also will help with their guillotine teeth in the back of their jaws. And this will definitely enrich the animal as well as help keep their dental hygiene. Hyaenodons are a very fascinating and interesting group of carnivores. And if we ever do resurrect them, they're definitely going to set us quite a few challenges in comparison to other modern day carnivores. However, regardless of their differences and challenges, if we ever bring them back, we got to give them the best care possible. Because if we bring them back, we might as well let life be worth living for. Thank you ever so kindly for watching this video. I had a lot of fun looking up this animal. It's one of my favorite mammalian carnivores, pre-Ice Age era. And I first knew about this animal from Walking with Beasts, and definitely learned a lot more in the docu-series called Prehistoric Predators, and I saw the Hyaenodon episode. It was definitely a fun topic this video was. A special thanks to artist Keenan Taylor. His artwork really helps bring my concept to life. And artbyjrc, I can't pronounce it, for his comparison art illustrations are really good in helping me with my video. I'll send a link to their DeviantArt pages in a link down below. My YouTube subscribers, your subscription means a lot to me. My patrons from Patreon, every little bit helps. And Southern Cassowary, YouTube's official cassowary, thank you for the information you were able to obtain for me. The video for next month will be on tending to Hyaenodon. I hope you all have a grand day. Adios!